this is Helen, and we're basically just going to do a quick interview and ask her some questions about diabetes. Helen, what type of diabetes do you have?
I have type 1 diabetes. It is a genetic type of diabetes. You don't get it from being overweight or having a bad diet. It's in your genes, and it turns on at different points in your life.
When were you diagnosed?
I was diagnosed when I was 16. It's kind of a late onset for type 1, but I've heard late onset such as 33. Generally speaking, though, type 1 diabetes starts when, when babies are born to probably 5 years old.
Okay. And before that, when did the symptoms begin?
Looking back after my diagnosis, I'd say the symptoms probably started about 3 months prior to when I was diagnosed, which is considered a pretty typical time span. Anything more than 3 months and you can have some complications from being in an undiagnosed state. But looking back, I had polyuria, polydipsia, polyphagia, starting at 3 months, and then it just kept getting worse and worse until I was diagnosed about 3 months out.
Gotcha. Did anything precede those symptoms at all?
I didn't really connect the dots, but after being diagnosed, they ask you if you had a virus in the last couple months, and it was really crazy to think back, and I did get really sick. I had a virus about 3.5 months before I was diagnosed, and the thought process is that virus triggers your cells to attack your pancreas and kind of start that autoimmune response.
So Helen, have you ever had to contact emergency services due to a hypoglycemic state?
I have not ever had to contact EMS for a low blood sugar, but I have had a really low one, and it was a 32. Normal is 80 to 120, as you know.
Yeah, that is pretty low. Can you describe your symptoms when you're in that state?
Yeah, anything below 80, you start feeling just kind of weak and shaky, and it's not always an immediate, oh, I have a low blood sugar. Sometimes you just kind of feel weird, and as I start thinking, why do I feel like this? It's like, oh shoot, I have a low blood sugar, I need to check. But you'll feel, the symptoms vary too. It's not always the same thing, but you'll usually feel hungry, kind of craving some sugar. You really shaky, you can get kind of clammy, and weakness is also a big one, just feeling really weak.
Does any of that come on suddenly, or does it all kind of happen gradually, or is it just always changing?
It's changing a lot usually. I'd say it kind of comes on suddenly. It really depends on how fast your blood sugar is dropping too.
So depending on how much maybe extra insulin you accidentally give yourself? Or?
Exactly.
Okay.
And also your relative average of blood sugars. So let's say you're kind of in the higher range of 180 to 220 for the last day, and you start getting down to 100, you could get these hypoglycemic symptoms, but that's a good blood sugar. So it's also relative to kind of where you've been
Where your baseline's at. Okay. All right, cool.
Okay, so I'm going to test my blood sugar. This is my glucose meter. You should always change the needle. Yeah, fresh needle. These are test strips, what you put your blood into and figures it out somehow by magic.
Okay.
Oops. Oh,
There
it
we
worked.
go.
Okay,
Cool.
217. Oops, a little high. Okay, so that's done.
So what's this device right here, and how does it connect to that, your glucometer?
This is a glucose sensor. It connects to this thing on my arm right here. And there's a platinum thread under my skin, and it takes my blood sugar reading every 5 minutes, creating this handy trend line. And you can zoom out and see where it's been, where it's going. And it's really nice because it'll give you an alarm if it drops too low or if it goes too high, so that you're aware of it and you can alter that. The glucose meter, you just help calibrate it. You still have to check your blood sugar, recommended before you eat and go to bed, wake up in the morning, just so that this is accurate as it can be. So I'm going to change my glucose sensor.
Okay, cool.
So it's as simple as just pulling it off, and so you can see where it was, just a really tiny little hole right there. Don't even feel it. And I don't know if you can see it on here, but this is the platinum thread that is underneath.
Bam, perfect.
Very small. So this is disposable. I keep this part, that goes in the garbage. Take off the adhesive. ready to go. And I just do it myself. Someone can help you if you want, but it's pretty easy to get in there.
Okay.
And then...
Oh, and that gets the needle under there?
So you push, this pulls the needle out, and this whole big piece comes off. And then it's as easy...
Sharps out.
We just stop the previous sensor. Okay. I go ahead, go in here.
Reattach the sensor there.
Reattach that. This piece breaks off. And then I just hit start sensor. There will be a 2-hour calibration period. At the end of that, I have to enter a blood sugar twice, and then I'm set to go for 10 days.
Nice.
Yeah. This is the insulin pump. First, I take off my old insulin pump. I currently have it back here in my hip. You can put it anywhere on your body where you have some fat. Luckily, I've got a couple places like that.
Oh.
So as you can see, there's a little irritation. It's been on there for 3 days. Here's what it looks like under your skin, the little cannula. Very small, don't even feel it. So this, down here, that corner, that's what's full of insulin and all these it's like a little computer.
Yeah.
It's just talking to the PDM. This is the controller for it. And it never gives me insulin without me, hitting the OK button, which is really kind of nice.
You have control over it.
Exactly. So, I first have to tell my controller that I'm done with this old pump. So I go and I just say I'm going to change the pod. So while it's recognizing that, I get this piece ready. This is a insulin pen. I use this to fill my pump, but it's also really handy to keep around. If my pump ever fails, I carry pen needles, and I can also use this to inject insulin. Only gives 60 at a time. That would be a lot of insulin for one person to get at a time.
60 units, you mean?
Yeah. I think that's a good cap.
Like, what's your average one dose?
One dose, probably anywhere from 4, and the max I would ever give is 13.
Okay.
I mean, it really depends on how many carbs you're eating.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta get some of those bubbles out. But definitely maximum of 13. So you insert it in this corner, and you just depress it until you hear a beep.
What?
I tell my pump I'm starting a new one, and it's gonna calibrate it.
Okay.
Yeah, if this does malfunction, I would use these handy dandy pen needles. They screw on to the end of a pen, like so.
Yeah.
You just choose your dose, and you'd put it in.
So right now you got on 3 units?
I've got it on 3 units right now.
Okay.
And it's very easy. You just perpendicular go into the skin.
Cool.
The only reason I don't use that is just a pain. The insulin pump's already on. You just dial it into your controller. It's really quick and easy.
But it's good to have the backup.
Yeah, it's very good because sometimes the pump will fail. You don't know why. Usually it says that the cannula isn't delivering insulin, and that can happen whenever. So it's always good to be prepared with a backup plan.
Okay.
Okay, so it's ready to go now. Really simple. I just stick it on and make sure there's no scar tissue where I'm putting the cannula. Stick it on like so. And I hit start. And hopefully you'll be able to hear it. Makes like a noise.
And that's the needle going in? Cool.
That just happened. And that's pretty much it. You're good to go for 3 days.
Cool.
So I can show you a bolus because I did have a high blood sugar when we checked it. So I enter my blood sugar. It was 217. I hit yes. I'm not going to eat right now, so no. Confirm, and it calculates this based on the sliding scale that I've put in when I set this pump up.
Okay.
I hit confirm. It has to be within a certain range to talk to the pump, but after that, I can throw this in my purse and it'll do the rest.